Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome Mrs. Shira Yosher, this year's Hanukkah Dinner chairperson. Mrs. Yosher is a member of the Yeshiva University Board of Trustees and a great friend and supporter of YU. Mrs. Yosher.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to welcome you to the 93rd Annual Hanukkah Convocation and Dinner of Yeshiva University. I'm so pleased to be serving as chair for this wonderful time-honored event. I would also like to acknowledge the great support and assistance of my dinner co-chairs, Renee and Stephen Adelsberg, Aviva and Ami Drazen, Robin and Shuki Grossman, you can clap, and Sivia Loria. We gather together this evening at a time of great excitement and opportunity for Yeshiva University. As we look towards our future with pride and anticipation, tonight we take the time to celebrate the accomplishments and contributions of distinguished honorees and supporters of our institution. As we celebrate the first official academic convocation for YU under the leadership of our new president, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman. So let us begin. Our Chief Marshal for the Convocation, Dr. Selma Botman, and Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs of Yeshiva University, will now proceed with the convocation ceremonies.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join in the singing of our national anthem, which will be led by the internationally renowned cantor, Dr. Joseph Melavani, cantor of the Fifth Avenue Synagogue in New York City, distinguished professor of liturgical music at YU's Philip and Sarah Bell School of Jewish Music, and recipient of an honorary degree from Yeshiva University. Then please remain standing for the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the last gleaming, whose was stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glares, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
The invocation will be delivered by Rabbi Meir Y. Soloveitchik, Director of the Zahava and Moshel Strauss Center for Torah and Western Thought at Yeshiva University.
Ani Hashem kirasicha v'tzedek v'et nechol lebrisam le'or goyim. I, God, have called thee in righteousness and set thee a covenant as a light to the nations. Ribono shel olam, Almighty God, your servants, the Jewish sages, centuries ago, instructed that candles be kindled on the eve of every Sabbath, their sanctity suffusing the home, their light savored solely by those within. And yet, they simultaneously insisted that the Hanukkah menorah be kindled primarily to be seen by passers-by, its luminance a pole star for the world without. Avinu Av HaRachaman, our most merciful Father, we thank you for Yeshiva University, which by its very name simultaneously insists that in a world in which wisdom is often wanting, Judaism's sanctity must be nurtured, protected, defended, and sustained, and yet also that we are charged with sharing Jewish ideas with the world at large. Bless Yeshiva in its era of new leadership. May it be a source of sacred instruction to its students within and an intellectual beacon to the world without for many years to come. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2017 Hanukkah Convocation is now officially in session. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I now call upon the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Yeshiva University, Mr. Moshel Strauss.
Good evening. I am pleased to join with my colleagues in welcoming you to tonight's historic celebration. Yeshiva University's Hanukkah Convocation and Dinner is each and every year a unique moment in the life of our incomparable university, and I believe this year it is even more special. Tonight, we not only honor and celebrate great friends and supporters of this institution, but we celebrate the inaugural year of Yeshiva University's 5th president, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman. We are honoring 3 individuals who model the attributes we wish our next generation to aspire to, and celebrate a talented group of students whose accomplishments fill us with great pride and certainty that our future, the Jewish people's future, the world's future, is in good hands. At tonight's convocation, we honor David P. Samson, Rav Meir Goldwicht, and esteemed New York Times columnist Bret Stephens. Each honoree is being recognized for representing the very best of Yeshiva University's values. David Samson for his impactful work as chairman of the board of Cardozo Law School, Rav Goldwicht for his Torah scholarship and pedagogy, and Bret Stephens for his moral voice of clarity and integrity. Yeshiva University remains singular in the world. Our commitment to Torah, rigorous curricula, intellectual exploration, and service to community prepares each student for a successful, meaningful life. But as our world rapidly changes and humanity is presented with new challenges, Yeshiva University is charging forward on a grand mission that will continue to empower future generations. We have reached an exciting time in the life of our university. Utilizing the framework of the 5 Torot, Dr. Berman is implementing a transformation at Yeshiva University. The new direction for our university envisions the creation of a culture of service, one in which our students view themselves as agents for change and recognize their responsibility to society. At Yeshiva University, at all levels of the university, we help our students understand the context in which they live, the professional, social, and moral challenges and opportunities that exist, and the role they can play in moving history forward. Tonight we contemplate the vast potential that lies ahead. Indeed, the future of Yeshiva University has never looked so bright. Thank you all for joining us on this special occasion, and thank you to everyone who worked and is currently working to make tonight possible. While singling out individuals is always difficult, I would like to specifically acknowledge our dinner chair, Shira Yosher, and Debbie Gibber, our arrangements chair for this spectacular event. An early happy Hanukkah to you and your loved ones. And now it is my great pleasure to call upon the president of Yeshiva University, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman.
Chairman Moshe Strauss, Dinner Chair Shira Yosher, members of our Board of Trustees, our esteemed honorees, my predecessors, Dr. Norman Lamb and President Richard Joel. It's our honor to be in your presence this evening. Allow me as well to acknowledge the presence of a former Vice President, Rabbi Kenny Brander, who was recently announced as the new head of Or Torah Stone in Israel. Rabbi Brander was one of the key architects of President Joel's administration. We thank him for his dedicated service and wish him great success in his new venture. It's our deep honor to welcome as well a number of our Roshei Yeshiva, rabbis, faculty, and deans, leaders of our administration, professionals, and staff, and of course, our dear alumni, friends, and supporters. Over the last number of months, after launching our new administration, we have experienced an incredible wave of support and interest from people from around the globe who believe in Yeshiva University and who are rooting for our success. Tens of thousands of people have online watched sessions of our October Investiture Conference, which gathered together the vast intellectual resources from across the Yeshiva University community. Over 500,000, over 500,000 people watched the video of the investiture in September. And even tonight, at this dinner, we have exceeded all expectations, as this Hanukkah dinner is one of the most successful dinners in its 93-year history, raising over $4.3 million. People are talking about Yeshiva University. They believe in Yeshiva University. But why do they believe in us? Why are there so many people rooting for our success? A story is told of a grandfather who throughout World War II managed to keep his grandson alive, even in the concentration camps. At the end of the war, when the last remaining Jewish prisoners were forced to work on the infamous death marches, the grandfather realized that his grandson would not survive the journey. So he placed the boy on his shoulders and carried him. All through the march, other prisoners succumbing to exhaustion or dehydration collapsed along the way. But the grandfather continued to march, carrying his grandson on his shoulders. The other prisoners encourage the grandfather to abandon the boy, warning him that his efforts will just get them both killed, as he would inevitably collapse from the weight that he was bearing. But the grandfather refused and continued to march, carrying his grandson on his shoulders. And at the end of the journey, after walking through the valley of the shadow of death, when almost everyone else had died along the way, the grandfather and his grandson were liberated and survived. When asked how he performed such an incredible feat of strength and perseverance, the grandfather cited a rabbinic teaching, Ha'aron noseat nosav. The Ark of the Covenant carries its carriers. The rabbis taught that when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the land of Israel, those who were responsible for carrying the ark floated in the air and were carried themselves. And while the literal explanation of the teaching implies a miraculous, gravity-defying supernatural feat, the grandfather cited this teaching with another meaning entirely. You act as if carrying my grandson is a great burden, but the truth is that I would not have survived if I was walking alone. It was he who gave me purpose. It was he who gave me the strength to succeed. You think I was carrying my grandson? Ha'aron noseat nosav. It was he who was carrying me. Why are we here? What is our purpose in life? To what do we aspire? For whom do we live? As a people, we have constantly and consistently defied the odds. We have marched through a difficult and often tragic history, surviving when others have fallen into the dustbin of history. Our durability is no accident, and our flourishing is no fluke. We have succeeded because we have a mission. We have survived because we do not simply live for ourselves. There's a greater context to our lives and an unshakable faith in our future. Yeshiva University is the product of generations of parents who have borne their children on their shoulders through times of prosperity and periods of darkness. And perhaps more importantly, Yeshiva University represents the hopes of our generation for future generations. And this is especially true for our world today, which confronts us with an entirely new reality. Whereas in the past we marched through the valley of the shadow of death with the highest goal being survival, today we are on a different march. Today we live in an era in which the state of Israel is thriving, when Torah and all knowledge has been made more accessible to greater numbers of people than ever before, in which we benefit from some of the most remarkable technological advances in the history of humanity. It is a world filled with enormous blessings, but as the fast pace of change naturally creates great uncertainties, it is also a world that represents some very daunting challenges for us, our community, and the broader society. And this is the place for Yeshiva University. Standing at the nexus between heritage and pioneering, we are the educational academic center of a robust global movement, uniquely capable of educating the next generation to capitalize on these blessings while avoiding and navigating the pitfalls and dangers. We combine the authentic voice of tradition with a deep understanding of contemporary culture, enabling us to infuse positive values and ideas into the current conversation. While our mission is focused on our students, our responsibility is to all of humanity. And we have the approach and the resources both to grow each individual student according to his or her needs and interests, and to exert a significant impact upon the Jewish people as a whole and our broader society. We have over 7,000 students, 8 graduate schools, 3 undergraduate schools, 2 high schools, a library and a museum. We have 5 campuses in New York, 1 in Jerusalem, students from 22 different countries, tens of thousands of alumni, a stellar faculty, deeply committed professional team, superb senior staff, incredible lay leadership, and the most impressive group of rabbis and Jewish educators gathered together under one roof in the entire world. Our students leave here both deeply rooted and forward-focused, endowed with a grand mission, calling them to use their skills and abilities, whether in the context of their personal, communal, or professional lives, to find purpose in their success and transform the world for the better. Our new administration is looking ahead and focusing our resources on addressing the current and future realities. Armed with a 3,000-year-old tradition and building on the successes of our venerable past, we are transforming ourselves to meet the needs and opportunities of our evolving world. It's an exciting time for us as we meet the challenges of today to create a better tomorrow. And this is why people are so interested in our future. Why is it that so many people are rooting for our success, and wherever I go, both inside and outside this country, people express their support and want to see us succeed? It's because there's a clear understanding, both in our community and beyond, that our future is crucial. That whether or not one is a student of Yeshiva University, we all need Yeshiva University. That a Yeshiva University that fully maximizes its potential and capacity is a transformative vehicle for the future. And this is especially true at this moment of time in a world in flux. If there is a time that is made for Yeshiva University, it is this time. If there is a moment in which our children need to be both deeply rooted and forward-focused, it is this moment. For all of humanity, Yeshiva University represents a uniquely important voice, modeling how to bring tradition to bear on the world of tomorrow. For the Jewish community, Yeshiva University is the best investment to ensure the success of our children and their children afterwards. And as such, ha'aron noseit nosav. Since our highest concern is our children and for their future, our work and support for Yeshiva University carries us, lifts us, drives us. It fills our lives with profound meaning. Thank you for joining us tonight. Your participation and partnership at this moment of time as we launch our new administration will empower our children to live with great success and lead with great purpose. And that, after all, is why we are here. Thank you.
Thank you, President Berman. We are now ready to celebrate tonight's honored guests and commence with the conferring of special awards and honorary degrees. We begin with the awarding of the Presidential Medallion, which is the highest honor that can be bestowed upon a member of the Yeshiva University rabbinic, academic, or professional community. It is awarded on rare occasions to the most exemplary of individuals, and tonight's awardee certainly meets that standard. This year's recipient of the Presidential Medallion, Rabbi Meir Goldwicht, will be presented by Mr. Elliot Gibber, member of the Yeshiva University Board of Trustees, member of the Board of Trustees of Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and a member of the Board of Trustees of Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary. Joining in the presentation of the medallion are representatives of the thousands of students of Rav Goldwicht across the generations, Mr. Ami Drazen, Mr. Stephen Adelsberg, Mr. Michael Treichberg. Would you all please step to the podium?
Mr. President,
I am honored and so happy to present one of our university's beloved Rosh Yeshivas, Rav Meir Goldwicht, to receive the prestigious Presidential Medallion.
בריץ. אני חושב שעדיף להם באנגלית. We begin tonight's proceedings by awarding you, Rav Goldwicht, the Presidential Medallion. For it is essential to us that as we set the right tone for this dinner and this new administration, that we do so by first honoring a member of our institution who represents all of our 5 Torot, all of the core values of Yeshiva University. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Serve God with joy, the psalmist exhorts us. You, Rav Goldwicht, embody a life of service to the Jewish people and to God, with your characteristic joy, chen, and incredible warmth. Ever since Rabbi Lamb brilliantly recruited you to our institution, you have brightened up our lives with your infectious smile and inspiring words of Torah. Like the fire of the menorah that refused to be extinguished, you bring an unceasing energy to your passion of spreading the message of Torah to all audiences. Rav Goldwicht, you have thousands of students. During the day, you carry a hard-to-fathom schedule teaching in 4 different Jewish studies departments, both in the Wilf and Barron campuses. At night, every evening, you teach a different weekly class in communities throughout the tri-state area. And during the summer, you find even more students at Camp Mesorah. You are a visionary that is always looking to teach more and bring more people into our YU world. You conceived and initiated our Sunday morning adult education program. You founded a new Torah undergraduate program that's bringing a whole new cadre of students to our university. You understood the importance of students loving Shabbat at YU, so you launched a new Shabbat program that is both attractive and meaningful, and so much more. But your incredible reach is way beyond our borders, due to the efforts of your dear friend and student, Steve Adelsberg. Once a month, you spend a Shabbat in a different Israeli city or town, going from neighborhood to neighborhood, delivering lectures and talks. Even from your home in New York, you teach a weekly class broadcast on Kol Achai Radio with 20,000 listeners across Israel. But what is impressive is not just the quantity of people, but the diversity. Religious and secular alike consider you their rabbi. You are a teacher to politicians, a mentor to military generals, and a counselor to captains of industry. Just last week in my office, we had a group of mayors and assistant mayors who came from all across the political and ideological spectrum in Israel to visit Yeshiva University. And when you, Rav Goldwicht, walked into the room, they all hailed you as their rabbi. Whenever you travel, you emphasize that you're a representative of Yeshiva University, spreading our name and message throughout the world. It is your belief in the power of Torah that is so essential. This is the secret to your success. What fuels your relentless drive, your belief in Torah, and your great love of people. You learned from your parents, your teachers, and from your military service as an officer of the Israel Defense Forces, the crucial principle that what unites us is far more important than what divides us. And if one comes with humility and humanity, then all are willing to participate, listen, and learn from our great tradition of wisdom. Your public persona as a Torah teacher par excellence is only matched by your personal devotion to your students and the members of our broader community. Your calls to widows to check in on their welfare, your visits to students who are in need of counsel, and your advice to young rabbis who are looking for guidance. We are deeply blessed to have you in our midst. Your teaching and personal role model has transformed our institution. Rav Goldwicht, as a living embodiment of everything for which Yeshiva University stands, it is my most profound privilege to award you the Presidential Medallion. The medallion reads, Mu'anak l'Rav Meir Goldwicht, Ish Ashkolot v'gezer Tarshishim, Muflag u'mefursam b'maasim tovim, Marbitz Torah b'rabim. Rav Goldwicht, traditionally it's understood that when a prize is awarded, it is the one receiving the prize who is being honored. But in this case, it is us who are giving the prize who are honored by you. Mere words cannot express our gratitude and great fortune for your presence in Yeshiva University. Thank you, and Mazal Tov.
Honored President Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman, Rashi Yeshiva, guest of honor, board member, President Emeritus Dr. Joel, alumni, faculty, students, and dear friends. Before I begin, I would like to tell you my first language is Hebrew. And my second language is also Hebrew. But I will try to explain myself in English how much I can. I would like to take this opportunity for a few moments to explain what brings all of us together here tonight. God created us with 5 senses. One of the 5 senses is our sight. The unique about our sight, we can take from everyone almost everything. Not to eat, not to sleep, not to have freedom. One thing we cannot take from anyone, how to look of different situations, what happened to us or what happened around us. This is completely our decision. To make this clear, I finished to give a lecture someplace. Old men come and give me essay what he write in the years what he stand concentration camp. And he write, he survived 5 concentration camp. They kill all his family. When he come to camp number 5, they take his name and they give him number. And the number is 116990. It means the person would stay before him, get 1 number less. Person would stay after him, get 1 number high. He almost destroyed. No family, no name, nobody. Only number. After a few days, he said to himself, wow, what kind of number? 9 plus 9 plus 6 plus 1 is 26. 26 is numerically equivalent to 1 of the name of God. Yud Ke Vav Ke. God, you stay with me in the darkness, in the difficult time what I stay. This motivates him not to give up and to continue and to build his family after the Holocaust is over. As we see clearly, no one in this world can take from us how to look of every situation, what happened to us. This is only our decision. Moreover, unique about our eyes, when the Bible teaches us, when God decided to destroy the city of Sodom, he said to Lot and his wife, to run away quickly, but not turn to face, to see what happened in Sodom. His wife turns the face for a few seconds. All the body changed to pillar of salt. Why? Because she looked on Sodom. And the way how God punished people in Sodom, many of them changed to pillars of salt. The Bible teaches us, our eyes take us to the place we look. As we learn, first, we decide how to look at different situations. Second, any place what we look, it's exactly the place what we stay. And the question is, how we really can build life with right perspective? The answer is, when we believe and we feel, we have two pairs of eyes. First, the physical eyes. Another pair of eyes, one in the brain and the other in our heart. Many times, people talk to us, and we listen. And our reaction is, I see. I never see, I listen. But we use I see, yes, because we see with the eyes of the brain. And many times we have deep feeling about something. It means the eyes, what we have in our heart, say to us what to do or not to do. When we know to coordinate between these two eyes, the eyes in the brain and the eyes in the heart, we have right perspective. And with right perspective, we recognize our potential. With right perspective, we can catch every goal. And with right perspective, we feel happy people. Our president, Rabbi Berman, is the first year of his mission. He have a lot of dreams. But the dreams, what he have, is with open eyes. Somebody dream with open eyes can catch and change this to reality. And our responsibility to give him shoulder. Our responsibility to help him to make the dreams, what he see with open eyes, to reality. Because every one of us not only teaches students the material what they need to learn, every one of us also teach our student to have right perspective and to take this for life, to any field and to any area. This is what makes us unique, and this is what makes us special. The honor, what I received, is not only for me. I feel I am here to represent all Roshei Yeshiva, what spend days and night to build the students, to give them right perspective, what everyone can take to his field tomorrow when they graduate. And I would like to take this opportunity to express dear appreciation to my wife, Hila. She gave me the possibility to spread and to teach Torah in the yeshiva non-stop and all over. Moreover, she opened our house to the students 24/7. And they can walk in and to feel the consistency what they have in the house. From some of them, she comes the old sister. And from others, she comes the mother. And this brings them to feel the home and the yeshiva is one. One word came to my mind in this moment when I see all of you. But this I cannot say in English. And the word is Pilei, Pilei, Plain. Thank you very much. God will bless you with great life. Continue to succeed. And Birkat Hashem tiyeh al kulchem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rav Goldwicht. Tonight's first honorary degree recipient, Mr. David Samson, will be presented by Mr. Michael Jesselson, Treasurer of the Yeshiva University Board of Trustees, member of the Board of Trustees of Albert Einstein College of Medicine and Yeshiva University High Schools, member of the Yeshiva University Museum Board of Overseers, and a member of the Board of Trustees of the Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary. Joining in the hooding are Dr. Henry Crisell, Mr. Laser Kornwasser, Ms. Marjorie Diener Blenden, and Mr. Philip Rosen.
President Berman, it is my great honor to present my fellow Yeshiva University trustee, Mr. David Samson, Chair of the Board of Overseers of Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law, for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
David Samson, you exemplify three bedrock values prized by the Jewish tradition: tenacity, humanity, and generosity. Your tenacity is fundamental to your personality and has enabled your enormous success. Starting out as a child selected last on the playground, constantly underestimated, you defied the odds and rose to the top of your professional field. You are a self-made man who presided over 2 Major League Baseball teams. You are a builder, both of businesses and buildings. As president of the Miami Marlins for 16 years, you oversaw all operations from sales to marketing to personnel. You are responsible for the construction of Marlins Park in Miami, a baseball-only air-conditioned facility that earned a Gold LEED certification, officially making it the greenest ballpark in America. During your tenure, you presided over a World Series championship team in 2003, which unfortunately came at the expense of our beloved New York Yankees. I'm sure at this occasion you'll be forgiven for this turn of events. Your astonishing perseverance and relentless will to succeed are also embodied in your extraordinary athletic accomplishments. In 2006, just to cite one example, you were the first active team president to complete the Ford Ironman World Championship Triathlon, a 2.5-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, a full marathon, all done in 15.5 hours, raising over $250,000 for charity. It's crazy. I don't even know all the rest of the things. Your sense of humanity is epitomized in your injection of positive values into the public square. When the Marlins suffered the loss of the perennial all-star pitcher Jose Fernandez, you stood before the nation and implored us to remember Jose by cherishing the freedoms that we enjoy as a matter of course, but that Jose bought only with great courage and personal sacrifice. You publicly modeled kindness and empathy at a moment of great tragedy. Finally, you have led a life typified by generosity. Your charitable efforts focus on helping underprivileged and sick children, as well as improving health care and education. You presided over the Miami Marlins Foundation, which has distributed $7 million to worthy charities in South Florida. You sit on the board of CAF, the Challenged Athletes Foundation, and have been the recipient of the Hope Award, which is the National MS Society's highest volunteer award. For us, of course, as the chair of our Benjamin Cardozo School of Law and a member of our Board of Trustees who sits on the Executive Committee, you are an important and valued leader in our university system. And for me personally, you have quickly become a trusted partner who I know will always give it to me straight and bring his wealth of experience and insight to further our efforts to grow Yeshiva University. We are fortunate to have you acting on our behalf with the same principled, spirited, and selfless energy. It is a delight to honor you this evening, along with your wonderful family, Cindy, your wife of 27 years, and your 3 children, Hannah, Kira, and Caleb. It is therefore my privilege to confer upon you the Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. In token thereof, I cause to be placed upon your shoulders this visible symbol of our high regard for you. And I hand you this diploma. Mazal Tov, David Samson. Thank you.
There's very few people in this room who would have ever thought that I can be called doctor. That's for sure. In the spirit of brevity and soup not getting cold, what we do up here is very important, and what you do is crucial. So I just want to spend my 60 seconds before the music plays and the band moves on to the next to talk about dinners like this, because Sunday at 4 o'clock as you're getting dressed, you're wondering to yourself, do I want to be doing this? And you're thinking to yourself, there may be other options. What I'd like to point out to you is the reason you're here. Table 24 and 25 is here out of obligation. I get that. Right? That's okay. The majority of tables are here because you believe in something. And right now is a critical time in our history. First, I'm going to talk about yeshiva, and then I'm going to go a little more macro. I was honored, extremely honored, to have been a part of finding and the selection of Rabbi President Dr. Ari Berman, or Dr. Rabbi President. Listen, I'm the only, I'm not as Jewish as everyone else up here, so I just call him Rabbi Dr. Ari. I just genuflect. When in doubt, genuflect. It's a very good rule. My mother Sylvia taught me that. It works. So for me, this is critical because what we do, our mission here at Yeshiva, we have a mission statement. We have all sorts of different schools. You heard from the rabbi. By the way, his bio may be slightly better than mine. He is 4 years older than I am. But you heard what our mission is. The mission is to grow mensches. That's what I talk about. My elevator speech for Yeshiva is that we're in the business of mensches. And our world right now is lacking people of moral fortitude, intestinal fortitude, and any sort of compass of doing what's right. And what we do, that's the royal we, Cindy. I told you I'd work in the royal we. My wife, Cindy, thank you. I can't even tell you about Cindy. She puts up with more than she should. Between Cindy and my therapist, they deserve this doctorate, not me. That's for sure. What we do as a group is we are preparing students to be the leaders long after we're gone. The seeds that we plant, that Rabbi, Dr., President Berman, and the board, Michelle Strauss, who is a leader among leaders, what we're doing is planting seeds for trees whose shade we will never know. Not one person in this room will ever realize the importance of what we do. All we can do is hope that what we're doing is right. And we hope that the people we are teaching and the lessons we are imparting will make a difference. Because the fact of the matter is, if we look today, there was an absence of proper teaching. Because the leaders of today don't get it. So our job is to create leaders of tomorrow who will get it. And I take that responsibility incredibly seriously, whether it's through law school, through any of the graduate schools, through the undergraduate schools. It's to put people in position to lead in a way that we can all be proud of. So that is what Yeshiva is doing, and that's why you got dressed and are sitting here, because you believe in it too. And I want to tell you that we appreciate, everyone up here appreciates the efforts that you make, because together we should all smile knowing that honorary doctorates are one thing, and it's nice, and I'm appreciative, but what's more important is the leaders we're developing and the change that we have a chance to make for future generations. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Samson. Tonight's final honoree and keynote speaker, Mr. Bret Stephens, will be presented by Dr. Mordechai Katz, Vice Chairman of the Yeshiva University Board of Trustees, Chairman of the Board of Overseers of the Bernard Revel Graduate School of Jewish Studies, member of the Board of Overseers of Azrieli Graduate School of Jewish Education and Administration, and member of the Board of Trustees of Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary. Joining in the hooding of Mr. Stephens are Mr. Phil Friedman, Mr. Felix Glaubach, Mr. Maury Weiss.
Mr. President, I am pleased to present Mr. Bret Stephens, noted columnist for the New York Times and a great friend of Yeshiva University, for conferral of the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Bret, the famed progenitor of the Jewish people, the biblical patriarch Abraham, was renowned as a truth seeker and an iconoclast. Dissatisfied with the complacent acceptance of the merely fashionable or conventional, Abraham sought to discover the truth about the universe and was moreover willing to take brave public stands in defense of his quest for truth. Indeed, in the view of the rabbis of the Talmud, it was precisely these qualities that attracted the Almighty to Abraham in the first place. Bret, over the course of your remarkable and robust career as a political and social commentator, few has exemplified the deeply principled contrarianism of Abraham better than you have. You are a man of letters and a man of values, both qualities due to the formative influence exerted by your dear parents, your mother, who is here with us tonight, and we remember at this time your father of blessed memory, who passed away 6 years almost to the day. Through your commentary on matters both foreign and domestic, you have left an indelible imprint upon the public debate. Born here in New York, it was only fitting that you returned to become one of the city's greatest literary personalities. After graduating with a BA from the University of Chicago and an MA from the London School of Economics, you began your career in 1998 as an op-ed editor for the Wall Street Journal. You left the journal in 2002 to become the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. Upon returning to the journal in late 2004, you've received numerous prestigious awards for your writing, including the Pulitzer Prize in 2013. And in April of 2017, you accepted your current position at the New York Times as an op-ed columnist, where you continue your sacred work to inform opinions, change minds, and inspire action. We live in an age that has borne witness to a relentless decay in the quality and civility of civic discourse. This has been accompanied in many quarters by a disdain for truth or even doubt that truth itself exists. Amidst all this, your voice has cut through the skeptical cacophony in modeling genuine curiosity, resolute but respectful disagreement, and a willingness to stand on principle even when it's politically or intellectually inconvenient. These values that you embody are native to the holiday of Hanukkah, which celebrates those who display the courage of their convictions, those who face midnight darkness all around them, but reflect back only light. And they represent one of Yeshiva University's core principles of standing for values and applying them for life. It is therefore my honor to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, and token thereof, I cause to be placed over your shoulders this visible symbol of our high regard for you, and I hand you this diploma. Mazal tov.
President Berman, Rabbi Goldwicht, Dr. Samson, distinguished faculty, trustees, and guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, Mom. Thank you for the honor you do me with this degree. I'd like to think that somewhere in the great upstairs, my rabbinical forebears from Vilna are smiling on this occasion. My topic this evening is the future of the United States, or, as some of my more pessimistic friends in the Never Trump camp are prone to frame the question, what future? It is prompted by the reflection that tonight is the 93rd year for this event, and thus by a sense of curiosity about where the world might be 93 years hence. I hope that my youngest child will have just celebrated her 101st birthday. I also predict that the Jets will be no closer to winning the Super Bowl. What about the rest of America? Let us suppose that it is the year 2110 and a history professor at Yeshiva's business school is asking her students to name the inventions or innovations that defined the economic terms of the early 21st century, much in the way that airplanes, the Model T, and penicillin defined the 20th century, or the steam engine and locomotive defined the 19th. What answers might her students give? Let me suggest three. The first is what we usually call fracking. A decade ago, it was fashionable to claim that the world was running out of oil and that the United States was mostly a bystander when it came to energy markets. Yet today, the world produces more oil than ever, and the US is again the world's #1 energy producer in both oil and natural gas. Fracking has meant we could sanction Iran's energy markets and barely feel the consequences at the pump. It has helped the US achieve the greatest reduction in carbon emissions of any country as we switched to natural gas from coal. Instead of living in a limits to growth era of diminishing possibilities, as the doomsayers of the 1970s believed, it turns out that we are in an era of energy superabundance in which the United States is again the global leader. Here's a second innovation few of us could have imagined: mobile apps. If you had used the term mobile apps just a decade ago, hardly anyone outside a few computer labs would have known what you were talking about. It is now a $100 billion industry and a ubiquitous feature of our lives. It has challenged long-standing urban monopolies, created job opportunities for hundreds of thousands of marginal workers, changed the way we deliver and get the news, and will revolutionize everything from the way we eat pizza to medical diagnoses. Finally, we might add, for a third innovation, gene therapies to the list. A century ago, the great killers were diseases such as tuberculosis and pneumonia. 46% of Americans in 1910 died of infectious diseases, as opposed to just 3% today. A half century ago, in the late 1960s, heart disease was the great killer. But here, mortality rates have also come down thanks to improvements in medicine and changes in lifestyle. Instead, as we live longer, cancer has become the great killer. Now, suddenly, the advent of gene therapies has opened the prospect that many cancers and diseases, such as multiple sclerosis, may be manageable or curable after all. Though we are still at the touch wood stage, it is no longer far-fetched to imagine a horizon where many more of us will push through the diseases that now get us in our 60s, 70s, and 80s so that we can live healthy lives, at least until we all die of dementia sometime early in our second century. And this, too, will transform societies for the better. Now, all of these innovations, and many others we could mention, from driverless cars to artificial intelligence, have downsides and risks. So does every other significant innovation in history, starting with fire and the wheel. Let me set that debate aside for now to make a more simple observation. To wit, fracking, mobile apps, and gene therapies are revolutions that by and large were made in America, not in Russia or Japan, the former countries of the future, not in China, the current country of the future, not even in Brazil, the perpetual country of the future. They happened in the US. And so the interesting question is, why? Every good teacher knows a great education depends on asking the right questions. Since we are living in a time in which the President of the United States has made an issue of American greatness, it behooves us to ask, well, just what is it that makes a country great? I would argue that the answer depends on how, as a country, we choose to answer a few simple questions. So allow me to propose 4 questions of my own. The first question is, how do we treat foreigners? Another way, a more academic way of putting that question is to ask, what is our attitude toward human capital? Do we recognize its inherent value and potential? Or do we tend to see people, especially immigrants, as liabilities, potential criminals, additions to the welfare rolls, threats to our cultural integrity, would-be terrorists, and so on? Because the subject of DACA has been in the news in the last few months, I've done some research on this subject for my column. A few findings. Did you know that immigrants account for 35% of all US Nobel Prize winners? Did you know that 83% of finalists in the 2016 Intel Science Talent, often called the Junior Nobel Prize, are the children of immigrants? Did you know that 40% of all Fortune 500 companies, accounting for $4.8 trillion in revenues and 19 million employees, were founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants? Did you know that immigrants start businesses at about twice the rate of other Americans? Did you know that without immigrants, we would have had 0 population growth since 1970, putting us on a path to a Japanese-style demographic death spiral? It is, of course, true that immigrants put strains on their host societies. It is true also that in any immigrant population, there will be thieves, killers, rapists, scallywags, and layabouts, though, by the way, did you also know that the incarceration rate for illegal immigrants is half that of US citizens? But the important question Americans must ask themselves isn't whether there aren't liabilities. There are. It's whether the liabilities aren't vastly outweighed by the benefits. Do we see newcomers as an opportunity and our welcoming of them as deep evidence of our abiding faith in our founding American creed created equal? That's the first question on which American greatness, I believe, depends. The second question is, what is our attitude toward independent thinking? It is no secret that it is becoming increasingly difficult to express a controversial thought in the United States today. A software engineer at Google writes a well-researched memo politely suggesting that the company is going about its gender diversity policies wrong, and he gets fired. Football players take a knee during the national anthem to protest what they see as racial injustices in society, and the vice president walks out on them. A liberal professor at Evergreen State College objects to student demands that all white people leave campus for a day, and he is hounded from his job. Oh, by the way, a center-right columnist at the New York Times delicately suggests that perhaps we should be less than 100% confident about our global warming predictions, and 40,000 people signed an online petition demanding that he be fired. All this has been accompanied by multiple efforts on campuses and in corporate life to criminalize or aggressively marginalize certain types of speech in the name of such worthy goals as civility and inclusiveness. But what begins as soft censorship rarely ends there. What starts as an effort to deter outrageous speech will inevitably have the effect of quashing genuinely original thinking. Just as the path to scientific discovery is a matter of trial and error, so too the road to an original idea, a great book, or a transformative social movement will always be littered with foolish thoughts, indelicate statements, and all kinds of verbal rubbish that may offend all kinds of powerful people. The United States has always been a land of invention, technical, political, and social, because it has given wide latitude to foolish thoughts and indelicate statements whose ultimate value may not be immediately apparent. And we have thrived because we have a cultural disposition in favor of the gadfly, the contrarian, the upstart, the entrepreneur, the late bloomer, the disruptor, the activist, the social nuisance. We have an inner sense that ripe fruits always start as sour ones, and so we nurture them. This is not how it is done in China, with its explicit censorship and prescribed opinions. It is not how it is done in much of Asia, with its suffocating deference to the opinions of elders. It is not how it is done in parts of Europe, with its polite political fictions. But it is how we have done it in the US, which is why we've been able to maintain a national edge in the think different category. And the question is whether we can maintain that edge, knowing at some deep level that it is our tolerance for the opinions that offend us most that is the most vital ingredient in the perpetuation of our national institutions and our national greatness. The third question is, what is our attitude toward failure? Many years ago, the great historian Bernard Lewis made an important observation about the fate of nations. Quote, "When people realize things are going wrong, there are two questions they can ask," he wrote. One is, what did we do wrong? And the other is, who did this to us? The latter question leads to conspiracy theories and paranoia. The first question leads to another line of thinking. How do we put it right? Lewis was writing about the Middle East. Why are so many countries in that part of the world such failures? Why have they squandered their national energies on hating their neighbors instead of thinking a little more critically about their own behavior? What might Syria or Libya or Iraq have looked like today if they had respected their Jewish citizens instead of scapegoating them, both out of appreciation for their contributions and as a mark of tolerance for other ethnic or religious minorities. There is, of course, a point at which self-criticism can become neurotic, paralyzing, and perversely self-satisfied. But it is also true that individuals, communities, and nations that habitually ask, what did we do wrong instead of who did this to us, are also the individuals, communities, and nations that, in the long run, thrive. Lately, I've wondered, in which camp do we Americans fall? For many years, there has been a grievance culture on the left with a talent for turning statistical inferences into allegations of systemic biases and treating every bad personal habit as a syndrome beyond the control of moral discipline. But now that's been joined by a grievance culture of the right, which seems to think that every factory closure in Ohio is the result of devious trade negotiators in Beijing, and that everything else that's wrong in the world is the fault of Goldman bankers, Beltway cucks, and the fake news media. This is a turn that can only be described as un-American. For generations, one of our advantages over our competitors in Europe and Asia is that we have a greater tolerance for personal or business failures. We're a country of second chances. But tolerance for failure has to be predicated on an acknowledgement of failure, a sense that we must first blame ourselves before we can hope to do better. Do we still have that sense as Americans? That's the third question. My fourth and final question is, what is our attitude toward global leadership? This year marks the 70th anniversary of what has come to be known as the Truman Doctrine. That doctrine put an end to our disastrous national experiment in blind and self-defeating isolationism by promising that America would come to the economic and military aid of embattled nations facing insurgency or aggression. In the following year, Truman came to the military rescue of a blockaded outpost of freedom, West Berlin, and he came to the moral rescue of another embattled outpost of freedom, Israel. In both cases, as later in our defense of South Korea, Truman put our national values ahead of our immediate interests. He didn't ask, what do we get out of this deal? He asked, what is right? How extraordinary have been the material and strategic dividends of each of those investments in moral principle. By saving Berlin, Truman created an outpost of liberty and prosperity that in time became the world's most visible rebuke to communism and, not by accident, the scene of its demise. By saving South Korea, he rescued its people from the Orwellian despotism that rules on the other side of the 38th parallel. And by recognizing Israel, he gave Jewish civilization a chance to reclaim our roots, the Jewish people the possibility to stand up against our enemies, and a Jewish democracy the opportunity to wrestle with and perfect ourselves. For America, the dividends have been even greater. We have had 70 years of unparalleled material prosperity and technological advances, 70 years of global leadership, 70 years without a great war. And we have been able to do it because, for all of the vicissitudes of the Cold War and globalization and the war on terrorism, Americans have broadly understood that great nations, like great institutions and great citizens, lead by example, by inspiring rather than coercing loyalty, by a decent respect for the opinions of mankind, by steadfastness of purpose and evenness of temperament, and by the understanding that a policy of magnanimity and benevolence will, if nothing else, instill the self-respect we need at times of adversity. That is the world America made, as my friend Robert Kagan put it a few years ago. And yet this too seems to be under threat, thanks to an economically transactional and morally blinkered species of a foreign policy whose only question seems to be what's in it for us, and which would trade all that we have gained, all of our idealism, for a mess of pottage. And that's the fourth question. Do we understand that our greatness ultimately depends on putting our values first, on defining our interests according to our values, rather than, in the style of every fallen empire, defining our values according to our interests? So those are my four questions. How we answer them matters a great deal to how we fare as Americans in the future. It is a responsibility that rests especially heavily on the shoulders of educators, because the questions I am asking are only secondarily about policies over which honorable people can disagree. They are primarily about habits and virtues of mind and character, about hospitality and openness, about intellectual independence and tolerance, about forgiveness and responsibility, about magnanimity, courage, and fair play. I believe a university such as Yeshiva, with its proud embrace of religious wisdom and secular knowledge, can meet that responsibility. Not a generation ago, we were the strangers in this land, just as we had ourselves been strangers in Egypt. We know what it means to be the foreigners, and we know how much we have contributed on our road to our American belonging. We are the children of Abraham, the original idol smasher and iconoclast. We know what it is to hold fast to unpopular ideas in the face of opprobrium and persecution, and to see those ideas vindicated in time. We are the people of King David, a man of many flaws. We know what it means to fail and to recover. And we are the followers of Moses, who also put values first as he steered his people through a wilderness to a promised land he would never see. We believe that our morality is a long-term investment whose benefits only our children may reap, but is the wellspring of our self-respect and survival. In short, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have something to teach. In this country, our country, we have been granted the opportunity, the means, the privilege, and even the power to teach it. Let's not miss our chance. Thanks once again for your time and for this magnificent honor. I'll treasure it.
Thank you, Mr. Stephens. Congratulations to you and to all of our honorees. Will everyone please rise for the Hatikva and join in the singing, which will be led by Cantor Malovani.
Kolot balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo veda tikvateinu atikva bat shenot alepaim eliot amecho חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ציון ירושלים.
Will the audience please remain standing for the recessional until all program participants have left the room? Mr. President, honorees, ladies and gentlemen, the convocation ceremonies are now concluded.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Yeshiva University, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, tonight's honorees, YU trustees, and special guests are now leaving the stage. Please join in a round of applause for our convocation participants. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats until the recessional has ended. After the recessional, we will continue with this evening's dinner. Thank you.